no sense of joy in the Elliot family. Everyone was staring at the red light of the operating room anxiously. Marcus Elliot, the president of the Elliot Group, looked gloomy as he glared sternly at the child next to him. It was a girl of about 3 to 4 years old. She was very fair and beautiful. She held a worn-out bunny doll tightly in her hand, and her eyes were full of confusion and nervousness. "Little bastard. Did you push Clover?" asked Marcus. Master Elliot, Marcus' father, was also furious when he heard that, and he scolded, "Your Aunt Pierce is still pregnant with your brother. It's already 6 months now. If anything happens to her, I'll beat you to death." Tears welled up in the little girl's eyes. She pursed her lips and said timidly, I didn't push her. How dare you talk back?" Just as Master Elliot was about to say something more, the door of the operating room opened suddenly. The doctor came out and the Elliots immediately surrounded him, leaving the little girl standing alone, clutching onto the hem of her dress. Her big eyes were full of anxiety and fear. "I'm sorry. The baby in the patient's belly could not be saved." The doctor's words shocked everyone. "What?" Madam Elliot almost fainted. She pounded her chest and cried, my dear grandson is gone." Marcus staggered backwards and felt as if he had been struck by a hammer. "Marcus," a weak voice sounded. Clover Pierce, who was lying on the bed, was pushed out by the nurses. Marcus hurried forward to hold her hand, asking, "Clover, how are you?" I'm fine." Clover replied weakly with tears in her eyes, "Don't blame Sweetie. She didn't do it on purpose." This sentence directly charged Sweetie with the crime. Marcus turned his head and looked at Sweetie with resentment in his eyes, as he exclaimed, "So, she did push you?" Clover had told him that Sweetie did not want her to give birth to her younger brother for fear that she would no longer be loved. Loved? He still didn't believe it. Unexpectedly, "Dad, I didn't." The little girl pouted and her eyes were red. "You still dare to talk back?" Marcus roared. The baby in Clover's belly had already been 6 months old. This miscarriage caused massive bleeding and she had been in a critical situation twice. The first thing she did after she came out was to ask him not to blame Sweetie. But this little bitch still didn't admit it. Marcus rushed forward and grabbed her collar, lifting her small body. "You little jinx, you killed my son. I swear to God I'll fuck you up." Up. After that, he threw the little girl heavily onto the ground. The little girl cried out in pain and fell down miserably. The doctor next to him exclaimed, "Mr. Elliot, calm down, this is the hospital." Marcus gritted his teeth and laughed. "I am not allowed to beat her in the hospital." Fine. He would teach her a good lesson once they got home. After that, he directly picked up Sweetie and went straight out of the hospital. As it was during winter season, the wind was cold and merciless. Sweetie curled up in the back seat of the car. Her little body could not stop trembling and her little face was full of horror. Soon, the car drove into Jimmy Villa's compound. Once they reached the mansion of the Elliot family, Marcus dragged Sweetie out of the car and threw her into the yard. body again and again. You little bitch. You're as cheap as your ill-fated mother. You and your mother are the jinxes. You both came to bring harm to me. I'm gonna beat you to death. I'll kill you. Sweetie gritted her teeth and refused to make a sound. Marcus beat her so hard that he didn't even know that his phone had fallen out. He only stopped when he saw that Sweetie had collapsed on the ground and was barely breathing. Kneel here and atone for your sins. You are only allowed to get up when Clover is discharged from the hospital. Throwing away the stick aside, he spat and turned to leave. The Elliot family was already in a mess. This little bastard still caused him such a big trouble and killed his precious son, whom he had been looking forward to for 6 months. After dealing with the matter in the hospital, he still had to ask someone for help to solve the problem of the company. Otherwise, not only would the company go bankrupt, but he would also owe a huge debt of usury. At the thought of this mess, he couldn't wait to beat Sweetie to death. This jinx had really brought bad luck to his family. After Marcus left, Sweetie lay in the snow and spat out a mouthful of blood. Blood. The little bunny doll in her hand was even more torn after the beating. She held it tightly and only felt that she was about to die. Could she go to see her mother now? She wanted to tell her mother that she really didn't push Auntie Clover. Why didn't anyone believe her? Sweetie gradually lost her consciousness. While she was in a trance, a voice suddenly sounded in her ear. Sweetie, quick, call your uncles for help. Your little uncle's number is 12,605. Call. The instinct to survive made Sweetie open her eyes and she saw the phone not far away. Gritting her teeth, she crawled over desperately, grabbed the phone, and began to press the number that had just rung in her mind. Her fingers were frozen stiff, and she could barely control them. She had tried many times before she successfully made the call. At the same time, at the Murphy family's manor in Capital City, Master Murphy looked tired as he said in a low voice, "It's been 4 years. Isn't there any news of your sister yet?" The 8 heirs of the Murphy family looked gloomy and there was a hint of sadness in their expressions. Their only sister, Natalia Murphy, had been diagnosed with early-age leukemia ever since she was a child. She had grown to 20 years old under the care and love of the whole family. She had undergone all kinds of treatments, including blood transfusion, anti-infections treatment, bone marrow transplant, and so on, but her condition was getting worse, and it even began to affect her memory. Memory. 4 years ago, she suddenly lost her way and it caused the entire Murphy family to be in chaos. The Murphy family looked around but could not find her and suffered a great blow. Madam Murphy had fallen ill and moved to the sanatorium. Master Murphy seemed like he had suddenly aged more than 10 years. The young Murphys were also depressed and only felt remorse and self-blame. The person who was in the most pain was the 8th son of the Murphy family, Colton. Colton was an experienced expert in tumors. He had been in charge of Natalia's health condition. However, Natalia went missing because he had gone to rescue another patient with an urgent illness. In the past 4 years, he had lived in remorse every day. Even if he had amazing talent in medical, it was difficult for him to go further. Colton pursed his lips tightly in the face of his father's question. His face was pale. answer. They had been searching for 4 years, but it was still in vain. They could not find any news about their sister. There was dead silence in the study. At this moment, a cell phone suddenly rang, breaking the silence. According to the rules of the Murphy family, they should mute their phone during the morning meeting. Colton took out his phone and wanted to hang up the call from a stranger. Unexpectedly, Master Murphy shouted directly, "Answer it. Turn on the speaker. I want to see what you are busy with all day long." The young Murphys all looked at Colton sympathetically. Colton had no choice but to bite the bullet and pick up the call. He turned on the speaker and heard